everybody, Jesu Otaku here. I hope you've had a lovely holiday season and are looking forward to New Year's. We had a white Christmas in Kentucky. This is Daisy, by the way. And this is the first white Christmas we have had since 1993. So we were all pretty happy about that. And when I say white Christmas, I mean when it snowed on Christmas Eve and was all snowy right through Christmas, not icy, just pretty soft snow. Anyway, this is a countdown. I'm gonna let her go. She's not gonna stay the whole time, I'm sure. She's being well behaved. Anyway, this is a countdown of my top 25 favorite anime of all time. And when I say top 25, I am not including movies because, just series only, because movies is sort of like a separate countdown that I would really have to think about, and I almost look at anime movies differently. So this is just series, and furthermore, this is a personal list. This is not necessarily, oh, what the heck. This is not necessarily what I think are the best. In fact, it's really not what I think are the best anime series of all time. There are several that I would place higher on this list if I was just doing them in order of how good they are or whatever, and several I would place really low. This is completely based on how much I love a certain series or how much it impacted me personally, that kind of thing. Additionally, I hope you can find something for this list to check out if you haven't already. And yeah, I'm going to enjoy the frosty weather out here, and I hope that the wind noise isn't completely blocking me out, so I have to dub this over. And, oh, what the heck. And from me to you, have a wonderful rest of the next year, and happy holidays, and say goodbye, Daisy. Goodbye, Daisy.
Only one truth prevails.
Number 25, Case Closed, the adventures of the world's greatest teen detective who becomes the world's greatest child detective after being drugged by a mysterious syndicate. Jimmy Kudo, or Shinichi for those watching the show as Detective Conan in Japan, must keep his identity secret from his girlfriend while solving cases for her bumbling detective father to try and find a cure for his pint-sized problem. This is definitely a serious case of nostalgia placement for me, as normally this is not the kind of anime I'd go for. It's one of the longest running series in Japan with over 600 episodes, 14 movies, the whole enchilada, and my favorite length for an anime is 13 episodes. It also doesn't go anywhere, as Jimmy has now been a little kid long enough to have grown up again twice, and you just know he's never going to find a way to reverse his shrinkage, because the show must go on. But this was one of my very first anime and manga, and even though I remember the exact instant that it dawned on me this story was never going to end, it was not a happy instant. What kept me coming back were the characters. You can sit down and watch any episode of this show from number 3 to number 300 and have a great time. Instead of being like many whodunits where all the fun lies in just guessing the murderer, the spark of Case Closed lies in its lovable characters. They're all so much fun, from the half-drunk Detective Moore's crazy antics, or the incredibly sweet interplay between Jimmy and Rachel, who goes from wanting to kill her boyfriend for running off on her and putting a really moving amount of trust in him regardless. The movies are great too, sort of like an episode of the series with better animation and more explosions. This is one of my very first introductions to anime and manga. I still have my favorite case and moments perfectly memorized from way back when, and I love all the characters and the crazy things they do. So that sets this firmly as my number 25.
It's a bet. A bet? I gotta say, my team's looking pretty good this year. Now, if your little girls can win this match, I'll give you unlimited free meals at my old man's restaurant for a year.
Number 24, Bamboo Blade, a story about a starving kendo instructor who adopts a brilliant player into his team in the hopes of winning a bet and unwittingly makes them into an unbreakable band. One of the most common entries on otaku favorite lists, at least when it comes to favorite comedies or slice of life, is Azumanga Daioh. While I can understand this, and I do think the show is funny, I never really connected to it personally for whatever reason I can't nail down. Still, I know people love that series because over time it begins to feel like the characters are real friends you've known for years, and even find themselves in tears by graduation day in the story. And for me, that reaction belongs to Bamboo Blade. I don't really like sports anime. I think of them like sports video games, and that if you really like a sport, you would just play it or watch it or whatever, and a cartoon about it seems extraneous. But Bamboo Blade, despite the trappings of the genre like explaining the rules of kendo as it goes and running off the passion for the sport that the creators clearly had, is totally different for me. The characters are absolutely adorable. I know I felt googly and squealy over Tamaki from the moment she first appeared, and bless their hearts, they never catch a break. This poor kendo club starts out small and bottom of the barrel and keeps having troubles day in and day out. Things move slowly, too. There aren't a whole lot of big tournaments in the story, but that doesn't matter because it's the friendship between the girls and how it keeps them going that's so captivating. Like Azumanga Daioh, it's not a serious show, but when it has its moments, you sit up and pay attention. The comedy is incredibly well done, it's not predictable, and for whatever reason, I attach to it hard, being one of the few things on my list I saw very recently. I don't ever plan on playing kendo, I guess you can't say playing, learning, practicing, but any story about people who are super passionate about something is usually a winner with me. And for Bamboo Blade, which I can't recommend enough, even though apparently my name is now on the back of the box, so I guess I'm recommending it whenever you buy it. I should probably get one of those copies. I don't even have a copy that has my name on it. Anyway, it makes my number 24.
Are you the one who is for me, and only for me? Or are you not the one who is for me? Which is it? Tell me. Which? Hideki.
Number 23, Chobits, a mildly bawdy rom-com about a university reject in a world of humanoid computers who finds a discarded Persicom in the trash and decides to take care of it as he struggles through prep school, completely oblivious to the doll's true purpose. So, I did not know this about myself until I made this list, but I really freaking love Chobits. Weird. I'm not a Clamp fan, and there are honestly parts of the series that make me want to beat my own brains in, but they pale in comparison to the moments of the series that kept me coming back to it, and bizarrely enough, even got me thinking. And maybe I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure this is the only magical girlfriend/harem series that delves this deeply into complex themes, and without preaching to its audience, no less. I've mentioned in a recent review that Clamp is always trying to reinvent how we think about romantic love, and I think this is their best and most convincing attempt at shocking us and warming our hearts at the same time. I always hate the spineless, stupid male lead in these things, but I really like Hideki. I also usually detest the perfect little Yamato Nadeshiko character, but I really like Chi. I don't want to spoil my upcoming review with the details on why, but something about Chobits seems to be trying to make its genre, the bottom of the barrel in anime to begin with, into something more, the very best of itself. It takes conventions from other ecchi series and tears holes in them without ever calling attention to it, and without going so far as to become a satire or criticism either. Some escapade will happen like it's just like every other harem out there, and later you'll find out the reason for it and just be stunned quiet for a moment. When I originally saw Chobits, I was laid up sick in bed and tired of watching Disney movies, so I started browsing the internet for anime. Yeah, I'm guilty of this sometimes. Specifically, something a little raunchy, because I wanted to see a lewd comedy for some reason at the time. I found Chobits, and as it went along, I got a lot more than I was expecting, making it number 23 on my list.
Wait a minute. This is real.
Number 22, Digimon Tamers, the saga of a pack of Digimon game-playing children who are drawn into a new world of danger and excitement when the game becomes real. The monsters come to life, and the government sits up and takes notice. That part about the government is the largest part of why I love this show. That and my nostalgia goggles are on tight enough to kill all oxygen to my brain, which is screaming, "You have a marketing vehicle on your all-time favorites list? What's wrong with you?" I obviously saw this kinda young, specifically 11 to 12 years old. Around the same time I was watching Pokemon and Hamtaro for point of reference, but unlike those other series, I would rewatch Digimon Tamers over and over. And only Tamers, not the other Digimon seasons. I would watch it on my own little homemade DVDs until I think I was 15 or 16. My sister has now inherited those DVDs, by the way, so I've seen it even more after I was quote-unquote too old for it. But coming back to the reason I love this show, I'm not 100% certain I am too old for it. In fact, I think its target age range is too young. The show starts out a lot like E.T. in this quiet, kind of weird and distant observation of a kid finding a monster, one he created in this case, and taking it home, trying to hide it from his family and strangely inquisitive authorities. I thought it was cute, so I kept watching, and very quickly had my little mind blown as the show became incredibly meta, referencing the other Digimon series as a toy franchise in its universe, introducing some low-key and downright complex kids with interesting problems instead of the cliches I was used to. And of course, the reason Tamers is famous among Digimon fans, the unnaturally dark turns two-thirds through that pile on relentlessly to the powerful conclusion. The story gets so intense that it seriously scared me. I mean, a Digimon series scared me as a kid, but I couldn't stop watching it. From my perspective now as an older otaku, I kinda have to shake my head at this, like what were they thinking? There's this tricky juxtaposition of cute, childish monsters and collectible trading cards with a deeper conflict I now realize is way over the heads of its target audience, and some absolutely mortifying imagery. I mean, a large portion of this show is spent with the stuffy old adults, not the children at all. I seriously have to question who this was for. It's not the highest kids anime on my list, and I think it made missteps in being as adult as it was, but I can still watch it without a hint of irony or shame. Love it even more now than I did as a kid, and for me, that makes it a solid number 22.
My desires fly along on a wing, along with my dreams, alone so it seems. Thoughts from the heart on a pure spring day. My mind floats away on a dream, so they say.
Number 21, Kino's Journey, the collected adventures of a young woman named Kino who travels the world searching for life's beauty in the strangest of places, from country to country that act more as parables than real places. I could probably name this as a favorite based solely on my love of the main character. I'm no feminist by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, I just don't think our gender has half as much to bitch about as the activists pretend we do, but it does bother me that the portrayal of women in both American and Japanese media is so narrow. I know I'm not like any woman I see in the movies, and it must be a gender thing because there's a terrific variety of men in film that I do recognize as being like people I know. If we're not dealing with generic feminine ingenue number 2019 in the movies, then we gotta deal with it in advertising, etc. And for some reason, the opposite, this ideal of female empowerment being violent and dispassionate like Lara Croft or those abominable creatures in Sex and the City, is even worse. But Kino is a character first before she's just a woman. Quite literally, we don't find out she's a woman until we look into her past and see her in a dress. But she's not trying to be masculine either. She's smart and usually disconnected, but she can also love and care deeply, and has good reasons for everything she does without ever coming off as unemotional. This is one of the best female characters I've ever seen, seriously. And I kinda hate that she's in a story that's so full of vignettes rather than a trail that would develop her character more. But I can't really hate it because the vignettes are wonderful in and of themselves. The look of the series is absolutely gorgeous, but like Kino herself, really understated. I first saw this series as part of an online book club of sorts, only with anime instead of books, and I was actually running it at the time. Several forumites at Anime News Network selected 2 anime they wanted to examine, neither of which I had seen, despite the fact I was running this pony show, but both of which are now on my favorites list. Kino's Journey really opens up both its own world and our own, from the way people think and live to what we think of it, saying a lot about what we believe as well. And of course, I'm one of those silly thinkaholics who loves that stuff, and therefore have to put Kino's Journey at number 21.
I'm 14 years old, and I already felt like my life was at a dead end until I met him.
Number 20, Beck Mongolian Chop Squad. The story of a shy kid who finds new life through rock music and learns to play the guitar and sing for his new friend Ryusuke's band. This is one of 2 entries on my list that encapsulate perfectly everything I love about Sundance fodder. which is admittedly not very much. The indie circuit is not one of my favorite places, unlike many film buffs, but there are things I love about it, and Beck has them. You'd be hard-pressed to find an anime series that feels more real than Beck, for one thing. The pacing, the sound design, the terrific dialogue and acting in the original Japanese, yes, but especially in the dub. It's not just a matter of certain scenes taking me back to good memories.